Yo ho ho! One Punch Man top 20 dragons. Let's ride, bro. Number 20, Bakuzan. There's all kinds of people who could have been on the list. There really aren't that many though that like were left off, but obviously the 20th spot and arguably the top spots are going to be controversial or hard to pick. Bakuzan is a speed demon. He's a martial arts master. Like we don't have to like mince words or like pretend like this guy because Goketsu manhandled him that he's trash. Let's get that first perspective out of the way because that's usually what people use to try and downplay Bakuzan or to relegate him to not even like to the lowest possible rank or the lowest possible dragon that we've seen so far. Goketsu's like one of the strongest cadres, arguably stronger than people would even argue that Goketsu's stronger than Garou right now. I'm not sure. I'm not the one that's saying it. I've heard it argued before. Bakuzan had speed. He's a little martial arts master from before the fact, and we already know how monster cells work. The potential that you already have is amplified greatly, but the limit of your multiplication is your original potential itself. So if you're at 10, you can only expect to grow at, let's say, at a 75% rate. You already know what 75% of that is. So what we have to remember about Bakuzan is that his humiliation of Suryu was complete and total. That's not to say that if Suryu wasn't at full power that he couldn't have put up a better fight up against Bakuzan. But I think it was pretty clear that Bakuzan's speed that he was portraying was pretty much superior to the presentation that Suryu posed up against Chose, or even some of the strong attacks that Chose himself posed. I'm not implying that like Chose had any traits that were just outstanding above Suryu's, but they were on par. So it's not crazy to like hype up Chose's feats in the Suryu fight in accordance to Bakuzan. I think that Bakuzan could have beaten convincingly both of them, both Chose and Suryu. And I'm not talking, like I said, I'm not talking about obviously their full health. They'd be fine or whatever. It'd be a tougher fight, but just to establish Bakuzan's capabilities. I don't think he's the most durable individual, but his design sort of alludes to that type of characteristic, a rough, brute martial fighter where he's delivering trauma, just straight punches and speed. I'd be interested to see how many heroes it would take to beat Bakuzan. I'm not saying that it would take multiple heroes. I'm saying that like we know how like gauntlets work. We know how the deep sea treatment scenario went. Deep sea encountered a bunch of other fodder heroes before he encountered the top obstacle of Saitama. A bunch of individuals, even before Genos, the big fish. So if you put Bakuzan to a gauntlet, what would happen? It'd be cool to figure out. It'd be cool to see that happen. With that, we're going to put Bakuzan in the 20th position. 19th is Gums. Gums isn't fully portrayed yet, right? We don't know his full power if he's used it yet. We don't know if his only capabilities involve biting, eating. We don't even know if he can transform or not. Those are like characteristics that are not necessarily common, but that have happened before, maybe even more than once in One Punch Man. So there's a precedent for them to happen again in the case of Gums. I'm also not implying that like I need Gums to like do those things like transform or have some secret power within, secret ultimate technique within to be satisfactory. I think that one, and would have to have a really good opportunity to do something different or unique, quote unquote, with the Gums Pig God fight. But in regards to his fighting capabilities, the only feat that I could really give him right now is the fact that like he did manage to like bust through Tatsumaki's shield. And that's not like some little play around feat. Like that's credible. Like that's that's something worthy of hold on. This app is like messing up. All right, here we go. So him breaking the shield is one of the first accolades, big ones that he gets, right? Yes, Eon broke it as well, but that was from the interior. We're talking about an exterior smashing through it. There's some dynamics that we could talk about there with, Tatsumaki's huge shield in contrast to the bubble shields she put around all the heroes. Are they equivalent in strength? Do you require the same amount of energy to deal with it like that? Like, Are we supposed to correlate that the bigger the size of the barrier, the more force is required to break through it? That would somewhat technically be the case, but we would be arguing whether Tatsumaki put up the shield in order to trap Psycho's inside, or whether she put it to like ensure that she couldn't break through it. Like, how tough is that shield? How tough is that shield? That's the question to really ask. Could this shield block maybe even another Earth Cutter? The reason why I'm posing it like this is because we're looking at the situation in hindsight. But at the time period when Tatsumaki first erected the barrier and we first saw the jet form, we didn't really know the extent or the limits of that form. We still don't know. We saw Sairochi go from the huge tentacle form with a big body and letting off the Earth Cutter to getting messed up, tremendously looking deformed with the talons, and then still letting off some pretty devastating attacks. So we don't necessarily know what she can release and when she can release. Even when Drive Knight and Genos came at the same time together to like attack Sairochi, jumped on Jet back and hit her with a blast, she absorbed the blast and hit him right back with a pretty powerful one. Not to mention the blast that she herself used up against the building that Tank Top mashed through and Atomic Samurai had cut through. Like, those attacks were all potent. She was in her jet form. So I'm not going to pretend like the jet form doesn't have some potency behind it, and it still isn't just breaking through the barrier. So how tough is this barrier in its big form? And if the barrier in its big form is that tough, does that mean the smaller version is just reduced in quality? Or is it not the same consistency? Is she not putting up the same amount of strength? If she were to be protecting Fubuki from a devastating attack, would she make a huge barrier? No, she'd make a localized barrier protecting Fubuki, the actual target. So I don't think size necessarily correlates to the strength of the barrier. Now, if that's the case, then we're talking about Gum's jaw strength, his biting strength, being comparable to some crazier attacks. Now, we know the truth of manga and anime. This is not a straw man situation. This is a steel man that we're going to propose. It's not as if to say that you're using the same amount of force every single time you attack, or that the shield is going to be made with the same amount of force to keep its stuff together. I'm not saying that has to be concrete. You would hope that would be a consistency, that the shield would have a consistent strength that could be measured, that somebody could actually break through. But I don't think it's crazy to say that Tatsumaki could pour in more power to make her shield tougher, right? Let's say that's the case. I'm simply bringing up all this information, all these facts, trying to connect these dots and these strings to give more credence to Gums right now. How strong was the jaw crunch of Gums? How strong has Pig got to be able to like rip open Gums' mouth and get out? We've made jokes before about Pig God and Oda Centipede. Maybe it's time to bring up the joke involving Gums and Tatsumaki's shield. Let's see what that's about. All right, next on the list we have Fear Ugly for our 18th position. Fear Ugly, I personally have more hope and more belief for the character than I would even say than the webcomic readers are letting on to. As an ongoing current reader, you're reading the chapters, you're getting the experiences, you're in the community, you're communicating on a week-to-week basis of what's currently going on. So whether individuals are being exceptionally cautious about not spoiling or whether they're being exceptionally cautious about not dropping hints, the fact of the matter is that hype, even in itself, is somewhat of a spoiler. If these individuals are not as excited for this occurrence, or they're telling you that, oh, just wait until this moment's over for another moment that's even hyper to come through, that downplays that particular moment in itself. So the fact that I have not heard that much hype, like overwhelming, consistent, annoying hype for Fear Ugly, that may allude to people not having such a favorable opinion about him. The problem is that was also the case for Neon, and now Neon is one of the, I don't want to say one of the preferred dragons, but he's definitely shown out and proven himself to be an acceptable cadre. I would accept him as a cadre. His skill, his dexterity, and we'll get to him in a moment. But in regards to Fear Ugly, who has not had a chance to fight because of a My Mask, he's still somewhat appealing. His dialogue made it seem as if he was like intelligent and competent, but yet he has a grotesque form that makes him look like a buffoon. Big, fat, but that's a nice suit. He looks like one of those banchos, a stereotypical bancho from Japanese high school. So I'm excited to see like what more of his character, more of his demeanor, more of his like personality as well as the fight goes on. Because coincidentally, a character that's coming into the arc is Metalbat. And from what I understand, Metalbat is somewhat based off that character archetype. That like of the bancho, like rough, tough guy, basically a high schooler that used to run, that still probably currently does run the high schools in Japan. So it'd be interesting to see those two come up against each other, a Fear Ugly versus a Metalbat. But if that doesn't happen to be the case, it's just still a My Mask opportunity to show up. Fear Ugly smashed Mai throughout the hallways, but he tanked it, right? We're still up in the air about how strong Amai is. We know he's tough. We know he's S-class worthy. We know he's probably even mid-S-class worthy. He'd be pretty tough. But he's not the highest of standards. He's not in the extremes yet. It doesn't seem that way. So how much of a feat for Fear is it that he happened to smack Amai across his hallway, right? Amai was bleeding, or not necessarily bleeding, but he was throwing out snot, as you can see in the pictures here, throughout the confrontation. But I got the feeling that a lot of it was more emotional distress than anything. We obviously know that it's the fact that Fear Ugly is an Ugmon and he's ugly as to why my match was petrified. That's not what I mean as emotional turmoil. I mean, the chapter itself was more so reflecting on my match as a character. If you remember, or if he hasn't redrawn it and removed it, a lot of the mirrors had a bunch of different images on them that didn't necessarily correlate to Fear Ugly or his position or even a My Mask. So it made it seem as if they were reflections of a My Mask himself, as if he was fighting his own inner monster, his own inner ugliness. Now, this representation has more context to it. It does have to do with personality, but it does also have to do with the physical appearance of a My Mask. So the question is a My Mask some like equivalent to Fear Ugly? Is he ugly deep down inside? And if that's the case, this seems to be a species. Is a Mai comparable in capabilities to Fear Ugly? Once again, I'm connecting all these strings because they're the best context that we have to give a better estimate for Fear Ugly, right? We don't know how strong he is. He hasn't fought anybody else, but he's a cadre. He has to be still of a certain threshold. He doesn't seem to have blasts. He doesn't seem to be able to levitate. He seems like he's just beating down on a Mai. So what do you need to beat down on a Mai? How tough are you if you're beating down on a Mai? It's to be seen, and I think that's why Fear Ugly is going to stay in the 18th spot until he gets a fight. Now, for the next fight, for the next position, we had to separate the two of the duo, so you know who the 16th is going to be as well. Weird thing to type up. Alright, so Hellfire, one of the duo of the ninjas. We're giving accurate credit here. There's no bias. We're not downplaying anybody. We're going to try to give as much information and as much context as to why I feel a certain way about this character, about all the characters. And you tell me if there's more information that could decrease that standing or increase that standing. And let me know in the comment section. So Hellfire, right? In the fight up against Flashy Flash, both Hellfire and Galewind got individual opportunities to show out the capabilities to challenge Flashy Flash, right? We know the instance that Flashy Flash wasn't necessarily using his full power the entire fight, but it doesn't mean that he wasn't trying. It doesn't mean that he wasn't going all out. He just wasn't using his final techniques. And he actually said that he was positioning them to try and kill them both at the same time so that one of them couldn't escape and cause havoc and more problems for the rest of the association. So his job was hampered and he was somewhat handicapped, but it wasn't to a degree to where he couldn't use his capabilities accurately. He was still trying to kill them. He was still trying to go after them, and he was still trying to beat them down, but he had to do it in the right way. So it wasn't like there was a condition to where like you have to capture them. It wasn't that sort of a handicap, so we can't use that as a reason to claim as to Flash wasn't giving us an accurate reading for his capabilities, because that's the only standing that we have. If not, it would be the same exact scenario as a Fury Ugly. Sonic isn't really a good comparison for these guys because we're talking about dragons, and Sonic hasn't really dealt with a real dragon like a real dragon. Let me just say it. He really hasn't dealt with a real dragon. So now we have the understanding that Flashy Flash was indeed, to a degree, handicapped because he was choosing to kill them both, and that doesn't mean that he wasn't using the full extent of his capabilities to get into that positioning. If anything, he was trying harder to get into that positioning. So Hellfire had a pretty powerful. I forgot what the combo was called. The Viz dubbed it a different, I think, a certain technique or whatever. But in an assault that Flashy Flash managed to block every single one of his slices, Galewind cut apart the bridge like nothing. Now we talk about like individuals not having AP or like swordsmanship being not as hyped up because they're not having as much destruction. There's the destruction for you. You have a dragon candidate or a candidate candidate, a pretty tough dragon, cutting apart a bridge with a nice flurry of swordsmanship, sword slashes. His speed in his dragon form as well, though. He also, just with Galewind, they both speed blitzed. Like Flash jumped up above them to run away from them, and they got to the destination that Flashy was going to before Flashy got there, and they managed to actually hit Flash and do some damage. He's underneath Galewind, though, because Galewind seemed more skillful. The fire that Hellfire has, it didn't really play that much of a factor into the fight. And I feel like up against other people it would have. So maybe that's an advantage that we're downplaying, that we're not really emphasizing as much because we didn't really get to see it. But his physicality, his speed is up there. Like he's not lacking anything. If anything, he's like one of the tougher ones. You know, Galewind was using some other. We'll leave Galewind to the side for a second. But the point I'm trying to get across is that the ninjas are very, very good. To the point that they were fighting Flashy Flash on an even plane, and they're actually dealing damage to Flashy Flash. It was just some casual, like, oh, let you hit me. Like, there was nothing in the story to allude to Flashy Flash allowed them to hit him. He was in combat, and he was being outmaneuvered, and he got outclassed once or twice. There's one particular reason why I have Galewind above Hellfire, and I'll say it once we get to Galewind. But Hellfire didn't lose a step. It was Flashy Flash's extreme technique, his complete full power, 2 badass combo attacks in a row that took out Galewind and Hellfire. I don't think that's a reason to downplay Hellfire, and I would honestly even put him higher up on the list, put them both higher up on the list. But the other individuals, their traits probably could deal with the overwhelming speed. And that's not to say that they're faster, but I mean, it doesn't matter how fast you run into a wall. So Galewind is tough, and he'd beat all the dragons above him. But, excuse me, Hellfire is tough, and he'd beat all the dragons above him. But, no, I don't think it's a but. These guys are tough. These guys are tough. The reason why Galewind is 16 is because he knocked Flashy's blade out of his hand. This wasn't like a fluke. It wasn't a mistake. He didn't drop it. With his swordsmanship, he knocked Flashy's blade out of his hand. Flashy himself in this fight mentioned that you're not skilled enough. You have not honed your capabilities. You have not trained as much as I have. That's why you can't compete at this speed. You may have the speed, but your brain isn't working at that level. It's a pairing of awareness and tactfulness. We all know how it is. And if you've really, like, I don't want to say I've experienced it or to a degree where I understand it completely, but maybe I can compare it or it's analogous to maybe you're running so fast, somebody throws you a ball that, like, catch it. You don't know necessarily what's going on. I don't know. I've had a situation like that where in football, the over-the-shoulder throw where you're just going out for a go route, quarterback will throw it over the shoulder, and you don't necessarily look at it exactly. You look at it the last second, come back because you're trying to get your full speed out there to get away from the defender, and you look up right when it's coming, and you just grab it out of the air. Like, peak hand-eye coordination where you didn't necessarily have to think about it, and maybe even thinking about it would have scuttled your senses or made you, like, overthink it. Maybe that's the innate capability, that hand-eye coordination that you just do it. If that's the case, Flashy Flash got unmatched. That happened. That happened. That's why I always bring it up, because this individual who Flashy Flash himself claimed that his skills, his weaponry, are inferior. And not only that, that's just the first marker against them. The second marker is that they themselves threw their weapons down. They themselves chose not to use their ninja skills up against Flashy Flash once they had frustrated their capabilities and just they couldn't get past it. Their monster forms were all that they could use to beat him. Like, if Galewind can use a claw to knock Flash's blade out of his hand, what do you think Atomic Samurai is going to do? That's why I have Galewind above Hellfire, because he managed to knock Flashy's blade out of his hand while Flashy was fighting in combat. And it was a competent disarming. He disarmed Flashy Flash competently. Next up, we have a guy who my name himself on Twitter is dubbed after. The combination of Black Sperm. Homeless Emperor came into the story with savagery. Like, this is one of my favorite characters in this series. Previously, let's say like a year ago, maybe even 2 years ago, you guys know what the hype was. My favorite characters were obviously Atomic Samurai. I was pushing Child Emperor heavy because of Brave Giants Edition. Like, it was rolling. Genos was up there because of the EC fight confrontation. Like, you guys knew who I was hyping up, who I was pushing out, who I was trying to emphasize for you guys to pay attention to see why I think they're so great. Homeless Emperor came in with the same exact aspect. The ferocity of his attacks, there's no warning, and they're just coming, like, and they're doing damage. And the casuality, like, he's just so casual, he's like calm, like, oh man, like, I'm gonna put it like this. Zombie Man is a bad marker to rate the strength of Homeless Emperor. He has an immortal capabilities. His offensive prowess are of the lowest amongst all of the S rank, but yet he's still really, really tough. To have Holmes go up against him, you could claim it as an accolade, but it's a stance to where you don't know what the real value of it is. Like, you're just going to keep coming back and coming back and coming back and coming back. We've talked about you incinerating Zombie Man and can he come back? That's the issue. Are we now claiming that the consistency or the 1 second. Make sure the stream's running fine. All right, bet. Are we under some impression that like Zombie Man's like durability or something like that is like reduced the more damage you do to him? We know the instance. We know what the quirk is. The more damage you do to him consistently, the longer it takes for him to regenerate. But what's the limit to that? We take it up an instance up against another tough fighter, right? Somebody who has more offensive prowess, because that's the real disclaimer here, right? We take a look at the notes and the data that Drive Knight gave us, and Drive Knight tells us that from the information that he gathered, it seems like he has a normal human physique. Now, people have called him a glass cannon, and I'm not giving any credence to that. I think Homeless Emperor is going to have some real capabilities, especially because God seems to be the one that imbued it to him. And none of the individuals who God has imbued power to seem to have been wimpy. We're still in speculation and conversation about whether Vaccine Man is somehow affiliated with God. Let's not use that as evidence here to claim that like Homeless Emperor has some good durability, because his durability doesn't necessarily matter right now. This individual who we saw at a distance that's like probably double of the distance from me to this camera right now, that I'm talking to you right now, was shot at with a gun. And this isn't like some regular gun. We see the type of upgrades that the guns that zombie mans have. Point blank. In his face. He's observing the bullet. He's observing the bullet. Looking at the bullet. And he brings an orb to interject it. Like, the speed at which he's able to react is incomprehensible. We talk about individuals having crazy reflexes. Speed of light. The FT. Let me not even do that. Like, we know that's dumb. We know the extremes that they're talking about people's speeds and being able to move is crazy. But we do have some individuals in the series who do have extremes, who somewhat is, to an extent, is founded. We could talk about Saitama. We could talk about Boros. We could talk about Atomic Samurai's cutting. We could talk about Flashy speed. We could talk about the reach of Tatsumaki capabilities. All kinds of stuff we can mention that are on the extreme level. There are not very many people who are just dodging bullets. We haven't seen it. If they do have the capability, we just haven't seen it. And sure, right? It's because we haven't seen you lift a rock doesn't mean you can't lift it, right? I'm not implying that most dragons in the list can't dodge bullets. That's not what I'm implying. I'm implying that some of the people may not have the skills or the reflexes to move that fast, but they have other traits to make up for it. You know? What does it matter if Bakuzan can't? Just an example. I'm not saying he really can't dodge a bullet. He's tough enough for it to just deflect off of him. We obviously know Bakuzan can obviously dodge a bullet. He's shown speed feats way above that. But why would he need to dodge a bullet? He would just let it bounce off him. Let's not downplay the speed at which Homeless Emperor can maneuver or defend himself. I don't think that any casual attack, and we'll talk about the potency next, because that's probably what we need to actually elaborate upon or get more information on, right? How tough of an attack can Homeless Emperor defend against, right? Let's say somebody throws a big punch at him, right? If Deep Sea throws a punch at Homeless Emperor, he could probably throw an orb with the punch and probably stop him. He may even blow up his arm when he does that, right? That's a tough attack. It's a solid attack. Trauma was coming at him and he stopped it, deflected it, blew it up. But what else is next? Can I throw a building at Homeless Emperor and he'll be able to like blow it up with the orbs before that? How tough and how many orbs? Like that's what it comes down to, right? Because it's not fantasy when he's done it. We're not using dynamics. I'm not saying that he's gonna make a huge spirit bomb type orb and then blow up let's go Bakuzan. Or, no, let's go with Goketsu, for example. Goketsu and win the fight. That's not what I'm saying, because he's never done that before. I'm using things that he's already done before. We've already seen him spam orbs to a continuous degree to attack individuals, zombie men in particular. We just saw it now up against a Mind Mash Child Emperor and Zombie. He will spam them and send them. I'm simply saying that instead of doing that, he's doing it at an attack. Let's say Darchan, for example, throws a punch at Homeless Emperor. Another improbable, not going to happen hypothetical. You would expect that Homeless Emperor would defend by throwing a bunch of orbs at that fist to try to slow it down or to knock him away, or even to blow him up. Maybe these orbs are strong enough to actually throw back and send back Darkshine. If that's the case, I'm all here for it. I just don't think that Homeless Emperor is defending himself by, putting up his fists or blocking or doing anything like that. And I don't think he's as fragile as just to be taken out by some measly attack. No demon is one-shotting Homeless Emperor unless they have some particular attack method, whether it's a shearing effect of a sword, maybe even some energy weapon like a laser. Maybe, sure, we could talk about it, but those are defendable. You'd have to have some special way to actually do it. That's why I think as human physique as he may have, Homeless Emperor's a threat. He's a crazy threat. The ferocity of his attacks, the intensity of his attacks. This boy has the 15th position, without a doubt. Now, if we can give Homeless 15th position, then the person right above him is Neon. Now, I want to make the caveat that I'm not implying that because one person's in a certain position on the list, they can beat all the rest of them. That was the case for Hellfire, and I said that specifically for Hellfire and Galewind. They could beat Fear, Ugly, Gums, and Bakuzan, the ones above them on the list. But I'm not saying that's going to be consistent for everybody else, and Homeless Emperor was an example of that. Neon is probably one of the most dexterous monsters we've seen in the entire series. Maybe even characters in the entire series. I don't even think Flashy Flash is as dexterous as Neon is. the way he can dodge attacks is like getting small, getting in between those cracks, like the way he like folds out of cracks like paper and attacks people, like the way he did it with Drive Knight. He popped out of Drive Knight and attacked him like that. Like he went inside of Drive Knight's armor. Like the possibilities, not only possibilities, the things he's already done in fights that are not necessarily like combat oriented. Like I'll give you 2 examples: getting inside of Drive Knight's suit and crawling through literal concrete, the cracks in concrete, and somehow being able to crawl through all of that. Imagine other things. What about the Brave Giant suit? Is Neon not going to be able to get inside of the Brave Giant suit? And that's the number 5 or 4th ranked hero. Like, but back then he was big, strong. Now he's like, you know, maybe in terms of strength, like a lot lower than that. But that's the Brave Giant's still pretty tough. Like, and Neon's just cutting in there and then just breaking it out, like ripping it off. Like Drive Knight himself said, "This is dangerous. I have to get out of this suit. I have to get out of this transformation." Like he had to change out of that transformation. He was forced to do that because of Neon's dexterous capabilities. So what other examples can that be? 100 Eyes. Let me not go to that first to what I'm going to say next. 100 Eyes. Can Neon not slip inside of 100 Eyes' eyelids when those along his tentacles and stuff like that? Like they're everywhere, right? Flash managed to cut them, and like they're like, what if he slips underneath there, right? Those eyelids are probably a lot bigger, and the crevice there is probably a lot bigger than the crevices between Drive Knight's armor or the cracks underneath the base. How many monsters are vulnerable to the dexterity of Neon? And his feline retribution? What about his stronger feline retribution, his cock diesel state? What about that? Building cutter? What if a big cock diesel feline retribution came from a guy inside you? Now, when I said that, what came in mind is that maybe in his bigger form, he loses some dexterity, right? Maybe that's the draw side of that. I have to reread because I don't remember that much context, and I don't think he was that dexterous after he got into that form. But that's just an assumed, implied trade-off. I can't say that that's the case. I've never even thought about that. So I can't even assert that as being the case. How can you be that dexterous and a tank? He didn't just get stabbed through, he got incinerated. Drive Knight, to the full extent of his tactical capabilities, using all of his power to do it, all his energy to do it, brought down Neon. But several things had to be done, and he literally said that, hey, I can't just plan out capture him. I have to kill him. It's going to be too difficult to do that. And that was after we had and that was after we have the understanding that without the prep, it would have been even harder for him to get to that point already. So now we have an S-class, a very, very capable S-class. We've seen his capabilities, we've seen what he can do. He didn't have prep time for Sairochi as far as we know. He's out there flying around, attacking her, and being competent. He even took but he even took a blasted attack to the face from Sairochi with Genos. And he's still fighting out there. And that guy said that without prep, it would have been extremely tough to get Neon. And even then, he still had to be like, oh, I can't capture this guy, I gotta kill him. And it was through the effort of trying to kill him that he managed to capture him by incapacitating him. It's the classic Batman, the classic video game trope that, like, hey, capture this guy. And by trying to capture him, it makes the whole task harder. And then you find out that, oh, hey, I can't even capture this guy. I have to try to kill him in order to capture him. So you end up using your full capabilities to do it. Happens all the time in anime, all the time in Batman, all the time in cartoons. That was the trope. That's exactly what happened with Neon. Drive Knight came into the scenario believing that he had the capabilities to capture him. Even with prep time, his condition and assumption was incorrect, and it required more effort and a different focus, a different tactic to bring down Neon. And then that was what was capable of capturing him. Neon may even deserve to be higher on this list, but the person above him, though their presentation was brief, I think it was sufficient to not only supersede what Neon has to offer, but he's pretty tough in general. So, Vaccine Man has 2 states, the regular state and the growth state. The first monster that we see in the series, This is the guy that set the standard that we can currently claim, or that I can currently claim, as one of the standing high points of One Punch Man. That there isn't some linear line of difficulty or of threat that like defines the story, and it allows you to do whatever you want whenever you want, and it makes the story unpredictable, and that's what I like. I don't want to know when the ending's coming. I don't know what's going to happen next. I want you to wow me every single chapter, and he's capable of doing this, not only because of this one trait that I'm about to describe right now, but this one trait plays a big part in it. It's the ability to have threats at any level at any point in the story. Vaccine Man was a dragon deserving of 13th on my list. On my list, he's 13th. And he showed up in the first chapter and had a briefest of appearance with like less than like 10 pages. Probably even less than like 5 pages. Vaccine Man's orbs were destroying the city. Both the anime and the manga did an amazing job of depicting the level of destruction that they were able to do. People try and downplay downplay Vaccine Man by saying that his orbs are the same as Homeless Emperor's when they have nowhere near the same destructive capabilities. Homeless Emperor were destroying portions of buildings, rooms in buildings with Zombie Man. Vaccine Man's destroying entire streets, city blocks. A city block is multiple buildings on a street. Multiple buildings on the street. Downward in the street until the next intersection or the next point. And multiple of those are being eviscerated. Blocks on end. And he's with every single orb that's doing it. And he's just spamming them like nothing while he's flying around. This guy's tough. Now, we don't know any of their buddies. I didn't mention this earlier because it was kind of a downplayer. It would make the feat seem not as cohesive, right? But Bakuzan himself got handled by Saitama. We don't know what the marker is. It's why his positioning, or the claim that people try to make as him being the weakest of the dragons, is unfounded, because it was Saitama himself who managed to overcome Bakuzan. And he was tough. Like we don't know what the actual threshold is. He's good. Same thing for Vaccine Man. Vaccine Man, actually, to me, I actually correlate him with Carnage Kabuto more than anybody else. Mostly because of the big form that he takes right there. That's why I think that form probably has some capabilities similar to Carnage Kabuto. Now, I'm not saying that I'm not labeling it that, and I'm not giving those traits to him, right? All we can probably tell from this is that the enlarged size of Vaccine Man whenever he grows probably enables him to use more strength. He's a lot more destructive physically. I'm not saying that his orbs are bigger now. I'm not saying any of that. But he does look a little bit tougher too. So, how tough is Vaccine Man? Right? Obviously, Bakuzan probably couldn't have one-shotted him. Could Goketsu one-shot Vaccine Man? Would the stadium punch from Goketsu kill Vaccine Man if he tried to block it but it hit him head on? I don't think so. Would it do in this big state? I don't think so either. Even in a small state, I believe Vaccine Man could have survived that stadium punch from Goketsu. And that's not downplaying Goketsu. It was a great punch. That's why I'm using it as an accolade. That's why I'm using it as a feat. It was impressive. It was great. But I'm saying, unfoundedly, what if Vaccine could have tanked that? Maybe we should move aside from tanking, right? Because that's unknown. We mentioned before that Homeless Emperor could, to deter attacks, could reduce the dangerousness of an attack. He could throw orbs at it, spam his orbs in a defensive manner to impede the attack's path towards him, right? Would Vaccine not be even more devastating? Imagine, instead of room-level explosions consecutively, like six orbs in a row hitting Darkshine's fist, trying to stop it. Just, bah, 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 bah. Now you have city blocks. Was it crazy of me to have questioned earlier if Homeless Emperor could throw back Vaccine, or could throw back Darkshine with his orbs explosions? Was that crazy? If it was, is it crazier to ask if Vaccine can? Vaccine Man's orbs can probably threaten people higher on this list. Probably the person right above him on this list. No. Vaccine Man's orbs can threaten the next few people on the list. Let me put it like that. So let's talk about those people. Yes, that is right. After 14th, who is Neon, and 13th, who is Vaccine Man, the 12th dragon on the list, 12th strongest dragon in One Punch Man, seems to be Goketsu. Now, I don't think I've mentioned this before, and I will make the caveat. No, I'll make the caveat. The top two positions on this list are above dragons. Because this is a real, it's a long version, but this is a real top 20 One Punch Man list in regards to this portion of the year. There's no such thing as above dragon. Doesn't exist. So that's why Goketsu takes position on this list. He may have been a little bit higher, maybe even 1 or 2 positions higher, if we were to make an exclusion for above dragons, but that isn't the case. Goketsu is a full package. So, whenever we talk about dragons, I don't like the term Kadre. It doesn't mean anything to me. Kadre is just a specification of dragons. It's dragons from the Monster Association. I don't believe the Kadre is to be above the other dragons. Like I said, Phoenix Man isn't even a Kadre, and he's stronger than some of the dragons. So, I don't take Kadre as a ranker of higher accolade. In the Monster Association itself, yes. If you're not a Kadre in the Monster Association itself, all the monsters, all the dragons in the Monster Association, all the monsters, if you're not a Kadre, yes, you do have lower status than the ones that do. But not amongst all the dragons which this list is about. When I think of the top ones, for a long time, because he was one of the first ones to be introduced, and he was so overwhelmingly powerful, Goketsu was one of the big 3 that I thought of. You think about the strongest dragons, maybe even to say the strongest dragons, traditionally, if you were to be excluding the above dragons, you would mention Rover, Goketsu, and Elder Centipede. That's the trio. To me, that comes in my head. Rover's presentation up against Garou was unprecedented. Elder Centipede's presentation up against everybody, including Genos, including Bang and Bomb, unprecedented. Goketsu's implications in the story and how he ended, unprecedented and unacceptable to this day. He also holds the accolade of being defeated by Saitama and not anyone else. How do I put this? Like, he has it all. He does. He does have it all. But it doesn't mean that others don't have traits that can deal with something in particular that he has. Like, if you have 4 traits in total, right? The total that you can have is 4 traits. And of those 4 traits, all of them, let's say one of them is amazing, and somebody has a way to deal with that one, you're pretty much out. It's not to say that you can't win, but you're pretty much out. Oketsu's different. He has 4 of those ways. Oketsu has 4 great attributes in this example, and they're all great. But it doesn't mean that one attribute that they have that's better than the other one can't still come out on top. You know what I'm saying? It works both ways. So, yes, there are other people who I believe can beat Goketsu. That does not mean that I don't think Goketsu is one of the top dragons, not just Kadres, in the story. I did say he is part of the big 3 considerably. That doesn't mean that he has to be in positioning with the big 3, because I think that there are traits that others have and can compete with him. It's not just overwhelming movement speed. We saw him keep getting behind Tsuyu every single time. He was beaten. He was tired from the Chose fight. Sure. He still put on a tremendous speed display. Yes, there wasn't a speed demon out there faster than Tsuyu that we could have compared it to. Yes, Flash wasn't out there for us to get a real good glimpse of the full complete scale of Goketsu's speed. It doesn't mean he wasn't incredibly fast though. Speed is depicted in a pretty convincingly way in One Punch Man. It's pretty consistent, and he had the attributes for it. Like Oketsu, which his movement speed is up there, and then his agility is like Bakuzen was going off on him, and he was just standing there looking forward, just with one handed, blocking everything that he had to do, beat him with nothing. Like when you have good martial arts skill, but you don't have any like power or talent behind it, you're missing something. When you have great talent, capabilities, but no martial arts skill, you're missing something. You know how you're never refining it. But when you have just great, like one of a kind talent, and then you match that with the discipline and the ferocity of a martial arts skill to the point that you won, you were the champion. Goketsu was the champion of the martial arts tournament. It's no wonder he's like this. This is a powerhouse. He's a brick, a tank. Oketsu's an obstacle. One of the greatest disappointments in One Punch Man is not getting to see him fight the dragons that we were the heroes we were claiming he could fight. Giro came in. This is a moment that I used to downplay Oketsu in arguments, but it could also be used to hype him in a twisted backward way. Giro told him, "Hey, you better get out of here before multiple S-Class start showing up." And Goketsu showed up saying that, "Hey, don't disrespect me by thinking that I would lose to S-Class." And we all know the implication of the people that it would take to beat him. Gino said it would take all kinds of monsters to beat Goketsu. Whether it's Tatsumaki, whether it's Saitama himself, whether it's King. He thought he would need to summon an entire gauntlet to bring down Goketsu. Now we know that he was misled. Completely misled. But that's an accolade to prove that Goketsu is very, very, very tough. So, let me put it like this. Goketsu versus current Garou would be a blockbuster. So let's move on. If we could talk about Goketsu, and if you remember what I said about Goketsu, then you'll understand why I think this character is above him on the list. Now, I said that you can use the fact that Giro said that, "Hey, you better get out of here where multiple S-Class come," as a feat for Goketsu. He responds saying that, "Hey, don't think I'll lose to multiple S-Class." But here's a problem. Goketsu did leave. Goketsu did exit the stadium. Goketsu's job was done. His work was done. That was the primary reason as to why he said he would be leaving, because his work was done. But I'm not under the impression that he couldn't have stayed to fight if he really wanted to. Don't get me wrong. I'm not doing this cheaply. He strolled out of the stadium. He walked out. He didn't hurry out. He didn't take great haste. He wasn't looking behind him when he was leaving. He casually left. It was his true intention that his job was done, so he was going to go. And he happened to just meet Saitama in the city. Fine. But if you really think and Goketsu was going to deal with that same gauntlet of S-Class that Genos was talking about, you need to reread your story. How many? 2? 3? 4? 5? When should I stop? Which ones? Gums? Excuse me. A Pig God? Metal Bat? Pooty? Tank Top? Sure. What about the real ones? Because that's not what Melzigard encountered. Melzigard encountered Metal Bat, Pooty, Atomic Samurai, and Bang. The top class of the S-Class and the bottom class of the S-Class. It's simple. This wasn't a casual. Let me not even play it casual. Let me not even try and downplay Goketsu in this instance. Look. He took on 4 S-Class. An indomitable blade, arguably the strongest martial artist in the series, Metal Bat, and Pooty. We know the dynamics of his power too. This is what makes him. This is what makes it even more difficult, and this is why I put him above Goketsu in particular. So we're almost bringing that Goketsu versus Melzigard. I've heard that the stadium punch from people will just knock out all the orbs. Will just beat Goketsu Melzigard with one punch, and then that's it. Squash him. The problem is that not only did Bang, but Atomic Samurai both assaulted Melzigard all over his body, the entire radius. Both of them, and they did not hit orbs. Didn't happen. It's not that easy to hit the orbs. And hitting him across his entire surface area also does not break the orbs. We've seen him hit. Like, they literally hit every single part of him. You think he just didn't hit the orb? No, he just didn't break when they were hit like that. Melzigard is a tough fighter. Not only was he able to manage to fight for S-Class for an extended time period, he was an obstacle to them. His regenerative capabilities give him the ability to fight to an extended time period, and then he can deliver his powerful blows because you're just fighting him so long. The longer you fight, the more chance you have of being hurt. It's simple like that. If you fight for 1 second, the only chance you can have of being hit in a fight is that 1 second. But if you're fighting for 10 minutes, those 10 minutes you can be hit in a fight. That's the great part about Melzigard. That not only can you deal all kinds of devastating damage to him, and with precision, just like Atomic Samurai was doing, and still not hit his orb and still not take him out. That same regeneration that lets him continue to come back and continue to fight ferociously also tires you out, also keeps him in the fight indefinitely, and also keeps him going. Even in his single form, look at you got down to a single orb where he was just a single guy, and he was still causing damage. Melzigard is a strong S-Class. To be affiliated with Boros does give him some strong claims, but right now, well, actually, we are using more context, so you could even say that the claims that he has with Boros should actually push him higher up on the list, because he's one of the lieutenants of the strongest monster in the series. Now, we've heard claims that, like, other lieutenants or Sairochi would beat, like, Boros' lieutenants from, like, the authors or whatever, or some context like that. That's fine. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the fact that Melzigard encountered 4 S-Class heroes. A feat that Goketsu was going to do. He was going to encounter multiple S-Class heroes, but he didn't get a chance to do that. But Melzigard actually did it, and he lasted. And he lasted a long time before he was inevitably defeated by them. I have no doubt that if multiple heroes fought Goketsu, they would also inevitably defeat him. But Melzigard was there doing it. That's why he's number 11 on the list. Because Melzigard fought Atomic Samurai, Silver Fang Bang, Puri Puri Prisoner, and Metalbad for a long time. Competently. It was not a toss-up. It was a toss-up. Like, it was cinematic. It was a good fight. They were going back and forth against 4 S-Class. That's all I'm going to say, because the next guy takes the exact same instance and the exact same stance. Like I said before, you can be here on the list, and you might not beat this guy on the list. But this guy may have a thing that could beat this other guy on the list. Carnage Kabuto. This guy was exciting. Carnage Kabuto had speed and strength that kind of showed us what a dragon was. It kind of set the standard, set the base for what a dragon is. We had seen Beefcake. Sure. He hadn't been given the claims for, but we knew what was going on. But Carnage Kabuto is just like... He's just like... It was what you expected. It was the Dragon Ball Z variant. It was the stereotypes in anime done well. It was the ferocious, like, just all skilled guy all around guy. Big got diesel, strong, tough, big fast, got them cannons on him, he's throwing them things to boys. He's out there, bro. Carnage had it, Carnage was doing it, Carnage was the guy. Then he blew away Genos' beams. Like, bro, Genos had just finished destroying a big ass like building facility with his cannon. Just generation cannon blast. And he comes in here and just blows it away like nothing. After slamming him into the wall. Like, Karnage Kabuto's rage mode is outstanding. And I think he's on this position on the list, especially in particular because of his rage mode. I don't think that Goketsu would have a great time up against his rage mode, but I think it would be a good fight. I think that would be ideal of what people would expect for somebody to beat Goketsu. That's why I think that Karnage Kabuto should be above him on the list in here, because if anybody were to beat Goketsu, they would be doing what Karnage Kabuto did or shown to do it. That's what I would imagine and picture them doing that. In regards to Melzigard, it's just the veracity of the attacks are just like it's. I think he's harder than Bang. Like if Bang fought Karnage Kabuto, that'd be a tough fight. That would be a tough fight. Karnage just has it. He has it. 1 second, make sure the stream's straight. Alright, looks like we're still going. Alright. Next is keep pushing with the next person on this list. That's right. That is right. Listen, man. This is an unbiased list. I'm being as credible and I'm taking as much context as I can as possible. He beat Darkshine. But he didn't beat Darkshine. Like, we have to be clear about this. We can't just give it to him because we want to assume it. This is for this point in time in the story on the list. I'm not saying that he's as weak as being under gravel. I'm saying that whenever he fought Darkshine, yes, he overwhelmed him. He matched his Super Alloy Bazooka. He did it. He did that. He matched Darkshine hand to hand. But Darkshine curled up because of fear, not because of pain, not because he was dying, not because he was incapacitated. He flipped up as Garou was about to bust his ears open. He flipped up right after when Garou hesitated. He's on the surface without a scratch. He said it himself. Bang didn't really harm me, but I did nothing to him. He kept flipping me and throwing me on my back and just deflecting my attacks. Garou got some damage in, sure, some, but it wasn't significant at all whatsoever. And he flipped up like nothing. That's what I'm saying. Garou has done crazy things. Crazy things. Crazy things. Watchdog. Genos. Metal Bat. Bang. Rover. Garou. Orochi. 7? Tank Top 8? Who do you want to count? Royal Bug God? 9? What do you... I'm not downplaying. I'm not doing that. This is like... He's it. Garou's my favorite guy. When he matched the bazooka, I was like, what? Darkshine stock dropped because of how ferocious and how powerful Garou is. Like, Garou got an accolade by removing that from Darkshine. It's usually a feat. You can have a feat for both individuals. That can happen. That can happen. That wasn't the case. Darkshine's stock went down when Garou matched it. And Garou matched the fuck out of it, bro. And his stock shot up. Bro, his stock shot up. But he got right back up. He got right back up. And you were hitting him. He was, bro, Garou let off a whole barrage, a whole flurry. Garou has not landed as many hits as he landed up against Darkshine. There probably has not been a single opponent, maybe Metalbat, fine. Nobody has had as many hits landed on them by Garou as Darkshine did. And then he flipped up and is on the surface like nothing. This is not pretend Garou. This is not Metalbat Garou. This is not Genos Garou. This is not a Bug God Garou. This is not Rover Garou. This is, I just got up from Orochi Garou. And he flips back up. Crazy feat for Darkshine. Crazy feat for Darkshine. But Darkshine isn't the end-all be-all. Garou has shown tremendous skill everywhere and all kinds of capabilities. But he has to get past this next obstacle. And I think this next obstacle is right around the level of all the other individuals that I think would be stronger than both Darkshine and Garou. This is why I believe Garou is in the best position right now in the 9th spot. Garou's greatest traits are his ability to adapt. He can be in combat and not only get used to your techniques and how you're coming after him to then outclass you or maneuver you and then get the upper hand advantage. He can mimic useful things that he finds incorporable into his fighting style. The whirlwind from Bomb is the perfect example. Garou not only learned the whirlwind from seeing Bomb, like I think it's like once or twice, and encountering him. He then managed to derive the Dragon Slayer Fist on his own. I don't think you guys understand this. The Dragon Slayer Fist is Bomb, the martial arts master, and Bang, the martial arts master, doing a certain technique together. Garou, without knowing that, put both of those techniques together that he didn't know what they were, because it's not just the regular water stream. It's not just putting water stream and rock and the whirlwind together. It's a certain technique of the water stream and a certain technique of the whirlwind. He put those together, and now he's doing the Dragon Fist on his own. And his variant may be as powerful, maybe weaker than the one that they did. Ingenious. This guy's a threat. We talk about Melzigard posing a threat because his regeneration not only keeps his health high and lets him tank a bunch of your attacks, but it extends the battle indefinitely. So now you're much more vulnerable to his attacks, getting hit by his attacks, and you're going to tire it out. You literally become weaker the longer the fight goes. Garou does the same exact thing, but the opposite. Now he gets stronger the longer the fight is. The longer you fight Garou, the stronger he becomes. The more he learns your capabilities, the more he's able to deal with what you're doing. The more he'll learn your skill. It's a problem to fight Garou. You have to beat him quick, and you have to be ferocious when you do it. You can't lollygag, because not only will he get stronger in fight to come and beat you, if you let him alive, he'll get stronger out of the fight to come and kill you for sure. Garou is one of the best characters in One Punch Man, if not the best character in One Punch Man. Garou is. There hasn't been another character besides Saitama that's gotten such an in-depth treatment in character development as Garou. Even Genos himself has not been developed as well as Garou has, and he has had less screen time. Garou has had less screen time than Genos has. He's one of the main cast members, and we have more context, more information, more nuance, more feeling. We're more in touch with Garou than we are with Genos, and that's a testament to one's exceptional writing capabilities, but a testament to how strong and how great this character is. Like, Garou, bro. Garou. But if we're really talking about strength here, Garou is not the end of the story. This guy may be it. Now, he didn't get a disaster ranking amplified to that highest degree. We know what it would have been. We know Beefcake should have been a dragon according to his fighting capabilities. We saw what that little Gatling, quote unquote, did to the ground, to the city, when he let it off when he was mad. Seeing him fight Saitama, I'm sorry to say it, that was a fight. Like, that was a Boros type fight. Like, he did throw Saitama down. He did that. How many people have thrown Saitama down like that? EC didn't. Rover didn't. Giant Crow didn't. Mosquito Girl didn't. Deep Sea didn't. Do I keep naming? What do we keep naming? Grizzly Neon, I guess. I don't know who you want me to keep naming. Who do you want me to keep naming? Like, nobody's done that besides the top tier guys. He threw Saitama across the Hut City, bro. Like, bam, smacked him down. And he jumped back up and handled it. Who else did that? Carnage, sure. Carnage. Okay. Cool, alright. Reasonable. I'll take the Boros claim away. Beefcake is powerful. His sides alludes to incredible durability. So it was a Saitama punch that broke his jaw. It did not explode his face like Deep Sea King. It didn't like. Sure, he didn't use a serious punch like he did the other Centipede, but I don't think it's far fetched to say that he would have needed one, like he needed one against other Centipede in order to do that to Beefcake. I'm not saying that I'm asserting that Beefcake's durability is as tough as Elder Centipede. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying he looked tough. He looked big tough. Now, since we're talking about big tough, and I just mentioned Elder Centipede, let's talk about the next person on this list. EC. So, the EC arc was the arc. The EC, I'm gonna say the EC saga, like, One Punch Man was great when Elder Centipede was around. Like, just aesthetically, just panels were just filled and great. To see Elder Centipede just twirling and curling in the background while some fights going on, it just makes the scenery. It makes the scenery. It literally makes the scenery. Like, it's amazing to have, like, active things in the background. And I know we're talking about strength, the top 20 strongest dragons list, but we have to give more context to things. Like, he's a city. Giant title smash, like, it's just him twirling around and thrashing around in the city. He's not doing some crazy special attack. He's just moving around and twirling around the city, and he's calling it an attack. Like, this guy's size is gargantuan. You literally, in the Garou Metal Bat fight, you see Elder Centipede in the back. So many panels of Metal Bat just posing up, getting ready to take on Elder Centipede. Just badass in the back, towering above buildings, all the buildings. You see the gif on the screen right now, you got Genos letting off his blasters. Just letting off everything at Elder Centipede. And no matter what it is, it just fails. It all bounces off the armor. Even the Sky Aura fist bounces off the armor. Or excuse me, basically just helps him molt the armor like nothing. We got past the individual. We got past the obstacle. Saitama took him out. And similar treatment to Goketsu. Sure. But we haven't forgot about Goketsu, right? Let's not forget about Elder Centipede. Elder Centipede's durability arguably makes him top 5 in the dragon categories. He's number 7 right now for a reason. We're talking about Beefcake having trouble smashing through Elder Centipede's shell with his Gatling. We're talking about Elder Centipede probably being able to squeeze out and rip apart Beefcake. Beefcake versus Elder Centipede is a blockbuster. Not only was Elder Centipede incinerated by a super incineration cannon from the inside by Genos, a very, very potent and powerful attack, he ate it like a sandwich and prepared to engage them again. Even Bang decided to go his abandonment mode, or take his shirt off and get ready to use his breathing technique and going hard up against Elder Centipede because he knew it was perilous. Bang, Silver Fang Bang, even with his brother there too, they knew it was perilous. They could not defeat him. Another instance, 3 S-Class. There's more to be said about Elder Centipede. Maybe we could bring up the fact that, like, he dodged Metal Bat's swing when he was coming in. That could lead to metal bat strength, right? In targeted location. Maybe that's some context that we could give as to why the next person on the list may be able to beat him, right? Maybe attacking that particular point is what's most effective, like Genos did with his talons on his back, his blades that he flipped over and used to stab through Elder Centipede's eyes. Maybe the pincers that Elder Centipede has are one of his strongest weapons, right? He cut through Genos. Maybe his tentacles are pretty efficient because they were able to catch Genos as well with that quick speed. All I know is that every person above Elder Centipede on the list can't beat him. And they would take multiple of their strongest attacks to beat him if there would be any chance to beat him. Now, for the people below him on the list, I don't know. It's to be seen in a moment. But Elder Centipede deserves this spot on the list. Check the stream real fast. Alright, bet. Still running. So if we can talk about the greatness of Elder Centipede, we're still spiraling back to the Monster Association. So let's talk about a monster who wasn't necessarily the hypest when he first showed up in the Monster Association. A character who was sprinkled in throughout the arc in his Dopey Bird form as an investigator. He not only was spying on certain heroes, he spied on Garou too, and he brought Garou to the Monster Association. The sixth spot is Phoenix Man. The canon version. And we all know the hurtful redraws that removed the most powerful iterations of Phoenix Man. But this current version isn't so weak either. In his he can still transform into his Prominence and Falcon variants, both of which focus on power and speed individually. But both have an aspect of both. The talons that are thrown, the feather attacks that are thrown from the Falcon mode, are potent enough to do some damage and send large objects back, as we saw. The Phoenix form, the power form, caught a fist strike. It seems to be able to morph himself into using more power and focusing his muscles into different formats. All can fly, and the heat absorption or energy absorption from the Phoenix form is still there and is still present. Phoenix Man is as versatile as anybody and everybody on this list. Him catching the fist strike before it got to 100% is what gives the credence to him being stronger than Goketsu and Carnage Kabuto. I think that if Carnage Kabuto and Goketsu came after Phoenix Man in his Prominence mode, he would be able to deal with that and probably even knock them back or outmaneuver them. The martial arts skills of Goketsu would definitely play a hand in there, and that's what would throw a wrench to the situation if there was a wrench to be thrown. That would be the debacle. That would be the speculation there. In terms of strength, though, and speed, I think Phoenix Man matches him on both points. Phoenix Man's speed, like we saw it, like Janiper couldn't even aim appropriately, couldn't after him in any iteration. Like, Phoenix Man has great speed in all the iterations. His ability to absorb, it's just the hacks, man, the hacks. His ability to absorb energy really puts him up there. Like, against all kinds of individuals, whether it's homeless attacks, vaccines attacks, like, all kinds of individuals are going to have trouble actually dealing damage to him. The Noble just completely failed in the other iteration. Like I said, that's the canon version, but we know what the implications are now. So, if the penguin form can lift up a glacier that big and throw it, and the Prominence form is still big, tough, big, strong, oh, why do you need the Light of Resurrection? It almost puts him, he should be higher. He should be higher. Phoenix Man is able to resurrect the dead in the vicinity. Things that he touches with his light, whatever his light radiates on, he can return back to life. It's potentially very, very dangerous. He not only brought back the ninjas, but a whole slew and variety of fodder, from large fodder to small fodder. So imagine if Goketsu was there, right? Imagine if you're in a team battle situation, right? Like now, Imagine if not just homeless pops out of this hole, but other cadres pop out of this hole too. And imagine if not just other cadres pop out of this hole, but Garou pops out of this hole. And what if not just Garou pops out of this hole that homeless popped out of, but Phoenix Man does as well. Now let's say we get an entire fight with all the heroes going all out in somewhat of a vicinity of the fights that are going on with everyone else. Let's say that Garou's fighting some other hero. Let's say he's fighting Darkshine. Let's say Metal Bat's fighting somebody else. Let's say these fights are going on and people start dying. What happens when a hero dies and a monster dies and then Phoenix Man brings them both back? Next in this list is Black Sperm. The bane of my existence. One of my favorite characters, if not my favorite character, Atomic Samurai, came through cool as hell with the samurai aesthetic. There's no reason not to love Atomic Samurai, and his character quirks make him even more appreciable and more interesting. But when it came down to Black Sperm, things seem hopeless. We've recently had the addition, the secret weapon of the Focus Atomic Slash, a technique specified for regenerative splitting hacks monsters such as Black Sperm himself, derived from his confrontation with Melzigar. It's gone. It's gone. It was hopeless when we first had it. When we first fought Black Sperm without the FAS, it was hopeless. And then we got it. It just changed everything. Like, I was so happy, like, we finally had a weapon to beat this crazy strong monster now. But now it's gone. Now it's gone. How do you beat Black Sperm? In the story of One Punch Man, Black Sperm mentions that you can cut him, stab him, burn him, punch him. A variety of things you can do to Black Sperm that won't kill him. And it'll just force him to split. Black Sperm also tells us that every single time he splits, they have the same abilities. So he splits in two. Now there are two Black Sperms that can each split into two. That can each turn into different forms. That can each grow. That can each absorb other Black Sperm and get bigger. Two dragons. We also saw the redraw. The hallway was filled. Even the shadows back in the corner, the darkness full of Black Sperms. And that Samurai is just gliding through above them, cutting them all and dealing with them. And they just keep coming. Splitting and splitting and splitting and splitting and splitting and splitting every single time. How do you beat that? How do you beat an opponent that the more you attack, the more elusive and powerful and numerous they become? It's a problem when you're fighting one person. Fighting two people is a bigger problem, double the problem. Now they have the same power. Now just multiplied double the threat, and they have the same capabilities. The same threat you pose, he now poses as well. Double the threat confirmed. And my attacks don't do anything to you either. So I can. It's already a problem because now there's more issues, more enemies now, right? Now there's more enemies to deal with. But now those enemies, I can't harm. I cannot harm those enemies. My attacks don't work on them. And when I do attack them, I just make more enemies. What? How do you beat Black Sperm? How do you beat Black Sperm? Now, there's some arguments as to whether this next character should have been higher on the list than Black Sperm because of that question I just asked you. And that question does pose a daunting problem. But a bigger daunting problem is Overgrown Rover. Rover's pacified. We don't know what that means. It doesn't seem like any hero or individual can come and just be nice to Rover and then he'll do what they say. But it does seem like the new Fubuki group and Saitama, or at least the Nufubuki group, have tamed Rover. What I'm hoping and expecting is that if he encounters somebody else, that he will not be tamed. He won't be friendly. He'll be just as ferocious as he was initially towards these new individuals. That seems to be probable. The problem is that, let me not phrase it like that. It's not a problem. You have to get to that point. You have to have the abilities to pacify Rover. This gives claim and feats to the Nufubuki group. But I love that in the recent redraw, one went through the trouble of adding more reactions of people just hearing the shaking, the quivering of everywhere, the entire underground facility, entire base, from Garou all the way to the top of the support team, noticing Saitama's punch on Rover. Overgrown Rover, who got back up minutes, if not seconds after the punch, and ran away to fight the Nufubuki group. We're talking about minutes or seconds. Orochi heard the commotion and then climbed up. He climbed up. That's all he did. He's a tank. He brushed off that crazy punch and was so scared he ran away. He's a tank. Not to mention, like, the cannons that he's letting off, petrified Garou, like, I'm gonna die, there's nothing I can do, like. Rover deserves the number 4 spot on the list. Goketsu can't beat Rover. Muzugar can't beat Rover. Current Kabuto can't beat Rover. Current Garou can't beat Rover. Darkseid can't beat Rover. Maybe Beefcake? I don't even think Beefcake can beat Rover. Maybe. Phoenix can't beat Rover. Maybe. I don't think so. And here we are. Arguably, the number 1 dragon on the list. In the 3rd spot. Orochi has multiple forms, it seems like. He's able to go into this ominous dragon state. He can formulate his dragons to grab legs. He can stand up tall. He has many different ways and orientations that which he can take. And he also has a prime form. Orochi can let off a variety of very powerful, high energy, high heat attacks in multiple directions, constantly without notice, and they're very, very powerful. In his prime state, he was able to curl all his dragons up into an arm and focus a blast to send Saitama flying to an entire other subway of another city. In doing that, he lifted the entire portion of the floor below a city as well along its path. One of the most unprecedented, crazy feats that we had seen at the time, now being dwarfed by crazy things happening in the Tatsumaki fight. Orochi is very, 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 very powerful. Not only did he manage to to dodge one of Saitama's attacks, I don't doubt he could have dodged the second one. Like, Orochi's not a joke, and I don't think there's another dragon on this list that's not fused besides Boros who could beat Orochi. With that being said, the next person on this list is Sairochi. I don't know how Google will pull it up, but here we go. Orochi and Psychos' fusion. The Earth Cutter. That's all I have to say. The Earth Cutter. Alright. Moving on to the number 1 spot. This is the strongest dragon in One Punch Man. This is the strongest monster in One Punch Man. This is the strongest non-human in One Punch Man, besides God right now. Well, maybe. We don't know about God. Boros sent Saitama to the moon. Boros' fight on his ship, messed up the ship. Boros destroyed an entire city with a single attack of his ship. Boros has meteoric burst. Boros' speed is unmatched by any other character in this series besides Saitama. Boros' physical strength is matched by any other character in the series besides Saitama. Boros kicks Saitama to the moon. Boros got punched by Saitama with a serious punch and he regenerated back in a second. Boros is a tank. Boros cock diesel. Boros big strong. Boros the type to body everybody on the list. Boros can fight everybody on the list and win. Boros can fight everybody on the list at the same time and win. Boros can fight Bakuzan and win. Boros can fight Bakuzan and Gums at the same time and win. Boros can fight Fury Ugly, Gums, and Bakuzan at the same time and win. Boros can fight Galefire, Heroin, Fury Ugly, Gums, and Bakuzan and win. Boros could also face Homeless Emperor, Neon, Vaccine Man, Goketsu, Melzigard, Kana Tabato, Garou, Beefcake, Elder Centipede at the same time and win. But if you you put Phoenix, Sperm, Orochi, Garou, EC, and have them do some kind of combo, tandem combo, you could probably high key hold off Boros for not a long time. No, they'd somehow fuck up and lose, mess up and lose. Boros can beat everybody on the list. Like the video, subscribe, join the family.